Two lives, the recording also. Hang on.
This podcast is brought to you by lineupmedia.fm. This is Baseball Outside the Box with Peter Caliendo. Innovative thoughts from baseball's best coaching minds from around the world. Brought to you by lineupmedia.fm. Now your host, former USA Baseball National Team Coach, Peter Caliendo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome this evening to Baseball Outside the Box. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. Looking forward to tonight's show, and we are going to rock and roll right away. Before we do, remember YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube, Peter Caliendo. You'll see over 80 shows. Just got done with the world famous Dr. Tom House. He was outstanding, and we got somebody just as good on the show next. I'm going to tell you about him in a second. Don't forget, Facebook Live, if you're on there, ask any questions, type it in the comments section. Love to hear some questions from you. And let me tell you, tonight, actually, I know we're in different time zones. It is going to be exciting because we have the El Comandante. And listen, the best international managerial story in the history of baseball, in my opinion. I'm the one saying that. 5 championships in 3 years. 3 in the Mexican League with Obregon, our good friends in Obregon, and 2 in the Caribbean World Series. Let me tell you, I've never heard anything like it. And not only that, 14 years out of the game, and then he ends up managing. This guy should be managing the big leagues. He was with Tampa 10 years as a scout internationally, and we're going to talk about that. There's so much. I mean, his story of how he got here, what he did, what he's accomplished is incredible. Let's not waste any time. My good friend, El Comandante. ¿Cómo está, amigo? Eddie Diaz, what's up, buddy?
Hey, B, thank you so much. You always with so much energy. It's unbelievable. Remind me those days when we went to Cuba and Vancouver as well.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about that, Ed. And sorry, io non parlo italiano, non parlo mucho español, ma comprendo un poquito español, no hay problema.
Doing good.
Remember, I was practicing my Spanish. You helped me a lot in Cuba. We had a great time together. But first of all, let me just thank you so much for being on the show. And again, I mean what I say, and I really think you should be managing the big leagues. You got so many great qualities. We're going to talk about some of those. But first of all, let's do this, Eddie. Let's just talk about what you're doing now, and then we'll roll right into everything else.
Sure, and thank you. And actually, it's my pleasure, and I'm really proud to be in your show because every night you guys, unbelievable personality. You know, Tom House, Clint Hurdle, Ron Washington, and on and on and on. But right now, I'm the deputy president for the Durangos Mexican team. After 10 years of being an international scout for the Rays, which I appreciate a lot. I learned a lot with them for 10 years. Probably I was doing something I was not cut up to do, but I did my job as best as I could. And being a president with a team, I think that was the cherry on my cake because I became a manager after being out of the game, and then later I was an advisor, then I was a GM, then I was managing the winter ball. And Jose Antonio Mansour, which I owe a lot in the game of baseball, he actually made me a manager in 1999 by an accident. He was the one who gave me a call. He says, hey, you know what? You've done so much in Mexico in different aspect of the game and different positions. Now I think it's your chance to become a president. And he called the gentleman who owns the team, Juan Carlos Martinez. We got a good conversation, and it's sad because everything stopped in March in training camp. But here I am with another different responsibility.
But it's interesting as president of a team. You've got all this management experience, and then you got the business experience. You got all that stuff that you can bring to a club, and that's very valuable. And I know you haven't had a chance to kind of kick it off, but you got it started a little bit as far as president, right? You got it rolling?
Yes, we did. I mean, we came to the first target was to, and I stopped part for somebody else because I have to actually fire the other personnel, and I have to bring coaches and manager. And the first addition of my team was a GM. Enrique Cuo, which is one of my pitching coaches through my career as manager. And then the manager, Felix Fermin, to me, the best manager in the Caribbean right now. And then I was adding up other coaches like Gil Rondon, Joe Alvarez, with people with a lot of experience in the game. So, and then we have the foreigner players. So everything was rolling pretty well, and the people are excited. But unfortunately, it's nothing we can do with this pandemic, and the virus is the one ruling everything right now, and we just have to stay patient, disciplined, and live with it.
Absolutely. Eddie, listen, I want to take everybody back a little bit in the history here. Let's go back to when you came from the Dominican Republic. Tell the story of when you got here, because, obviously, I mean, I can't imagine any young person doing that nowadays. I got kids that travel overseas, and we got to have chaperones with them. I mean, it's a whole different atmosphere now. They can't fly from Chicago to Miami, let's say, to Santiago, unless somebody follows them all the time, and they're 16 years old.
Well, it was difficult in my part because that was my first time out of my house without my parents. But then you add it up, you, day by day, you get to know the guys better. I always like to be in the United States of America. I love the country for the first thing way back. So it was not that hard for me, honestly. I adjust pretty well to the food. I love roast beef and mashed potatoes and gravy and iced tea. So to me, it was pretty easy. And everything was rolling. I was with the Yankees, and I was let go. I used to have a bad temper. My first manager was Carlos Tosca, a gentleman that I respect so much. We met later, and he asked me, he says, "Hey, Eddie, I was very hard, right?" I said, "You're not hard. You're just young like I was." I remember back then, he was like 25 years old as a coach. Then I went to the Braves, and then I spent 5 years with the Cleveland Indians. And I retired pretty young. I retired at 23 years old because I figure, hey, in baseball, you got to hit, you got to run, you got to throw, you got to catch, but you have to think. So I think early, and I say, hey, let me get out of here. And I was married with a woman that I love with all my heart for 35 years. I met her in Waterloo, Iowa, which is my home. And we married in New York, went to Dominican, left the game, went to New York to live like everybody else. I was working in a bread company. But one day I said to myself, as long as you think from your neck all the way down, you're going to cost $5 an hour. And from your neck all the way up, the sky is the limit. And then I become a salesman. And I started selling real estate. So everything was added up, little by little, and eventually ended in baseball.
And you didn't just end in baseball, but you were also, I believe you worked for a sports agency. You guys had an agency. So you were in baseball for a little while, but then you were out like 14 years before all of a sudden you get this managing position.
Well, it was one of the most beautiful part of my life. I met Chris Fanta. To me, it's my little brother that I never had. And his father actually financed the company. We found the company together, Pro Talent. And it was a beautiful story because I was out of the game for 14 years. And at that time, I was flat broke. When I say flat broke, I don't have anything. My wife, my kids, and my parents, low, and I was just moving on. Chris and I, for some reason, we clicked, which you know him pretty well. Mm-hmm. I love him like a brother. And then we ended in 1999 in Córdoba, Veracruz. So we were doing some business, bringing some players over there. And I got to meet one of the greatest men that will be in my heart forever, Chara Mansour, a legacy in Mexico, baseball-wise and business-wise. And his son, Jose Antonio Mansour, which is still in the game. I mean, he's the owner of Laredo. And next year, he's going to be celebrating his 50 years in baseball.
Wow. So
how everything happened, P, was I was leaving the next day after we did some business with some players, and I was with Chris. And Chara Mansour, rest in peace, he asked me, hey, what time are you leaving tomorrow? I said, I'm leaving at 6 a.m. because the flight from Veracruz to Houston is 9 o'clock. He goes, well, I got the manager to finish the season. I said, good. And who's that? He says, you. I say, me? I never managed in my life. He says, don't worry. You remind me of Winston Janus. So go talk to Jose Antonio, which the way we say in Spanish, cariñosamente Pepe. I went to meet with him, and it's a man that I respect a lot. I have love for the man with my heart. And he started writing down numbers, how much he's going to pay me. I say, hey, listen, I never managed in my life. Give me $200 if I win, and don't give me one penny if I lose the game. Just give Chris Fanta $1,000. He's leaving tomorrow for our expenses. Give me a place to stay and 3 meals. And that's how everything started. And all those years, I did not manage because I want to be a manager. But then one day, 2007, Jose Antonio Mansour and Rene Gallo, they approached me. And they said to me, look, you're pretty good with the bullpen. And you're pretty good at get people to play for you. why you don't put time in managing? And that's how I saw my part to Chris. I used to have a basketball team with the IBL. I sold a team, and I just stick with the real estate business, and I start managing, and that's how everything start clicking.
You know, it's amazing. Here you are, somebody gives you an opportunity to manage. We're not talking about managing the local town, 15-year-old team. We're talking about the Mexican League, one of the top professional leagues in the world. And all of a sudden you're going to manage. And now you get an opportunity to go to Obregon. And you brought me to Obregon. What a beautiful city. What great people there. I mean, and as we walked around and we had lunch, I think the media came running over there for an interview and everybody knew you. So tell us about how you got involved with Obregon and that first year, because it can't be easy, in a new city to get started in that first year and get things rolling and win the first year the championship.
Well, it came along because in 2007, Rene Gallo actually got my first job as a manager in the Winter Bowl, and there was a Mazatlan. And that year, the general manager was Chino Valdez. I went to the finals with the team. So that was my first year. We went to the finals. But the following year, there was some changes. They don't bring me back. I went to be a bench coach in Dominican. But the team who win the championship against the team that I manage, Obregon, now they're in problems, and they need a manager. So they used to nickname me the motivator, and they believe that I can motivate the team. So I went over there. We did make the playoff. The following year, we went to the semifinals. And then finally, 2010, we win the first championship. We went to Maya West. We win the Caribbean Series. And the following year, we win again, back-to-back. And we went to Dominican. We lost. We don't have the championship in the Caribbean Series. The third year, my older brother, was pretty ill. And I want to go to Dominican. And everything was going well. And with Toros in Dominican, that's the name of the team, in La Romana. And I got released 5 games before the playoff, but I don't want to play. I don't want to manage any longer for the season. So I'm in Dominican. I want to have my kids so they can share with his family that they never met. But then I got a phone call from Obregon. A couple of players told me to come back. So came back straight to the playoff. We win the third championship. Then we went to the Caribbean Series, and we beat the Dominican in 18 innings. So I was blessed, P. I was blessed because I got great players. I remember my guys like today, behind the plate, Ike Franco, Said Gutierrez, Agustin Murillo in third base, Alfredo Mesa at shortstop, second base, Carlos Valencia, Barbaro Canizares in first base, together with Sergio Contreras, left field, Douglas Clark, Cody Wimbley, and Albino Contreras, Mendoza, Luis Mendoza, Rolando Valdez, Marco Carrillos, Adrian Ramirez, Hugo Castellano. I mean, I love all those guys, plus my coaches. I mean, the only way in life that you will get things is thinking this way. God delayed things in life, but he don't deny anything. If you persist and you understand the obstacles that you will have and be ready to take action when it's needed, you get things accomplished.
Eddie, we're going to continue about Obregon. I want to ask you one question about, here you are. Okay, you played pro ball, so you've been around pro guys, but here you are all of a sudden, and you've got to manage. We never managed before, but you're managing. Explain to the coaches and the folks out there. We're not talking about current big leaguers with the Caribbean Series. We're talking about current big leaguers in the Mexican League. What's it like for somebody who's really never done it before? All of a sudden, you got all these big names that you've got to manage. How do you handle that? Because that's not easy at all. I mean, you got to be intimidated a little bit, I would think.
Well, I don't believe in negative reinforcement. I think days has changed. And what I did is I used my skill in the business or in sales to deal with people. I was one of the managers that actually, even if we ended at 2 o'clock in the morning, the next day I was at 10:30 in the morning in my office. I put my stuff in the desk. I go to the office, talk to the general manager, to the owner. And after I spend a couple of hours, go back to my locker, put some shorts on, watch the video from the game of the night before. But I want to watch my players come in so I can see their faces. If one of them has a rough face, something was wrong. So when you understand the nature of a ball player and you understand what they're going through, becomes easier for you. And I was the type of manager that I would say, hey, you know what? The locker room belongs to you guys. You got lieutenants, you got mayors, you got sergeants in here. If a problem comes to my door, it comes too far. So, you know, I don't really police those guys. And manage players is the easiest part for me. Deal with the bullpen is the easiest part for me. So in reality, it was easy for me to manage, or it is easy for me to manage.
And it sounds like, the way I'm listening to you, two things: the mental aspect of the game. I remember Tommy Lasorda being very famous for that. You know, he was very good with the mental part, getting guys to play hard, and handling the bullpen. Those two seem to be a very big strength of yours.
Well, in reality, I learned two things after I read a book from a good baseball man. And he asked a question around how many games you think you can win as manager if you manage 100 games. Some people says, well, 50 games, another one 40 games. And he says, bullshit. I mean, you probably win 10 games, 8 games. Everything is up to those players. So if you motivate them enough and believe that they can do things, for example, we played against Culiacan, a pretty good ball club. And they the favor, even if we went back to back. They were the favor. I mean, they got Marlon Berg, they got Karim Garcia, Ramiro Peña. I mean, they were loaded. But I told my guys, I say, hey, you know what? Nobody can underestimate the heart of a champion. That's who we are. We went back to back. And with our feet on the ground and our eyes to the sky, we're going to go and battle these people, and we're going to beat them, because that's who we are. And I remember we were playing at home, and Armenta, left-handed pitcher, he was eating my two big guys with a changeup. And Douglas Clark was coming up, left-handed, good hitter. And I say, Dougie, can you do me a favor? He goes, yes, sir. Can you bunt? Because I can see that he has some problems in his delivery. Maybe he got some leg problem. He goes, of course, I do that. And I know the manager wants to bring his best guys in the bullpen because he wants to bring us back to Culiacan because we ahead 3-1. So guess what? He bunt. He took him out. The guy came, hit 2 bombs back to back, and we win the game. So the game would tell you, and 1 inning at a time, it's not the right sample. You got to be managing 3 innings ahead of you. What you think is going to happen in the 5th inning when you're in the 1st inning?
You know, one of the toughest things, if you've been in a game long enough, it's not easy to repeat because everybody's after you. You've got to still be healthy. There might be some trades involved. Might see some players that you might have to release. There's always different factors. You repeated 3 times with Obregon. What were the key factors, you think? Why were you able to repeat 3 times? What were the consistent factors to be able to do that?
The players. If you have the players, you got everything. If the players believe in you, you got everything. Second, you got to have coaches that get you guys on the tone that you want them when it comes to time to execute. You got to have a good front office. I got a pretty good owner, Arturo Rodriguez. I got a good GM, Francisco Mijares. I got a good advisor, which was Chato Lopez. And I got good coaches. At that time, my right-hand man was Manuel Velez, but I got a good pitching coach, Octavio Alvarez. And I got Gerardo Sanchez, a good third base coach. And I got Hector Estrada, a good first base coach. So I got good people. When you're surrounded by good people, no manager has a little touch with a magic and make things happen. No, it's not that way. You got to have the arsenal. When you have the players and you have all that ingredient, and you got a good fans like Obregon that support you so good, that's why I call the city that city has a destiny, a touch in their life that to be better every year. And that's what we did. I mean, we fight so hard to get what we have back in the days.
You know, and you can tell when I was with you that Obregon was special in your heart. It couldn't be easy to leave Obregon.
No, it's not. I tell you what, I have offers to manage other teams, but it's hard. You know, I back then, 2 years ago when I decided to rest, and I don't regret stop managing, because a lot of people ask me, man, you're a manager, you're not a scout. But Pete, I love my family. Baseball is just a job for me. You know, I'm not a type of person that goes crazy and say, I love the game of baseball. No, I love my family. So I changed security for my family instead of my famous managerial job to get me somewhere. Yes, I would have loved to be in the big league. But at that time, I was dealing with Tampa because they were good to me. They were good to me. I mean, I will never forget those guys. The Tampa Bay Rays is a great organization. I have great friends. You know, Steve Miller, which you know him pretty well, Patrick Walters, Carlos Rodriguez, you know, Ronnie Blanco. It's a lot of those guys which I love. I miss them. And I have no doubt they're going to continue to get better and better. And my passion is it's love and help people. And Obregon has a special place in my heart, and it always be like that.
Well, big shout out to Obregon, and I believe it's the Yaquis.
Yaquis.
Right? Yaquis. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I got to, as a matter of fact, Obregon, I'm waiting for my Yaquis hat. I forgot to get one. No, just kidding. Listen, Eddie, the other part of all this, 3 championships with Obregon, then now all of a sudden 2 also with in the Caribbean World Series. Explain to our coaches, because not everybody might know about the Caribbean World Series. This is the big leagues of big leagues. I mean, this is one of the biggest international events anywhere.
Yeah, it's top of the line. I mean, you know, after the World Series, Caribbean Series was ranked number 1. When I was a kid, I dreamed to be in the Caribbean Series. And then after I was out of the game of baseball for 14 years, when did I ever thought that I was going to be in the game of baseball with a uniform in the Caribbean Series? So, and have Mexico in the chest. I mean, to me, that was huge. And I got tears in my eyes because when we went in Mayagüez, I received a lot of emails and a lot of texts, especially my family, my wife. But the one that touched me the most was the one from Jose Antonio Mansour, because he was the one who gave me my first opportunity. So I don't know what he saw on me, but I, you know, and I remember Rene Gallo, he was in the Caribbean Series, and I can see his face all excited. I don't know what they saw in me, but, you know, I appreciate it very much that they thought that I could be a good manager, you know, and accomplish what I accomplished.
You know, in the Caribbean World Series, you also competed against the Dominican Republic. That lineup had to be incredible, your home country. What was that like? And then the second part of this question is, for coaches out there, when you're putting a team together like this, you know, you put together the team from Mexico to compete, there's not a whole lot of practice or training prior to that. How difficult is that to go into competition not knowing all the players real well?
Good question. When we actually start choosing the players, we got to get the best of the best, because we're going to compete with the best of the best in the other countries. And like, you know, there was no batting practice back in the days in the Caribbean Series. It was soft toss. Right. But I think I was the first manager to start with that. When we in Mayagüez, I told my guys, we're going to leave earlier. So don't worry about it. You can stay in the clubhouse and come out and hit at your own time. So I got some of the guys that work in the field in Puerto Rico, and I give them a tip of $25 to say, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to shack. So we and my coaches shack. The guy comes out of the clubhouse. They hit, go in. So they're not upset. So I have to, you know, to keep it going, plus get some ground balls and adjust himself to the field. So we try to stay busy. I got good, you know, great group of guys. I tell you what, when we play 18 innings against the Dominican Republic in 2013, Dominican have, but at that time, Miguel Tejada, Hanley Ramirez, Jose Ramirez, I forget the center field that was with Seattle. Jimenez in third base, Ronnie the closer. It was packed, and they beat us 2 games. And I told the media, I say, hey, don't worry about it. They're going to suffer more in one game that they're going to lose in this final, the 2 games that we lost against them. And we winning, Pete. We was winning in the 9th inning. And Ricardo Nanita, left-handed hitter, played AAA with the Blue Jays, hit a bomb and tied the game. And we played 18 innings. And they have men in position since the 7th inning to the 18th and never score.
Wow.
I mean, my pitching was tough, but that was a great night. We finished at 3:40 in the morning. Everybody, the whole country was just stopped. Even in Dominican, people went to bed at 7 in the morning. But, you know, I got a good ball club. You know, I got Ike Franco behind the plate, Murillo in third base, together with Oscar Robles. I got Mesa, I got Valencia. I got Marlon Byrd in right field, Douglas Clark, Karim Garcia. Chicote Ayala was my closer. I got Villarreal, Luis Mendoza, how I call him, the big horse, Rolando Valdez, Edgar Gonzalez, Danny Reyes, Rodrigo Lopez. So we got a good ball club, and I got good coaches. And plus, we have all the Mexican country just cheering for us. That was great. That was. I would not change that for anything.
Oh, I can imagine. It sounds incredible. What would Eddie Diaz? When you're managing and there's a tough loss? What does Eddie Diaz do after the game or the next day? How does he react to it with his ball club?
I don't believe in negative reinforcement. I mean, I build my respect, and this is going to sound funny, but I build my respect the way I conduct myself and I talk to them. I never lie to a player. I mean, if you're going to see a player, don't let him find out when you post the line up in the wall. If you got a good guy, a good player, let him know 3 hours before, hey, you're not playing today, but I want you to be ready in case I need you. In training camp, I always get 1 day to talk to one player and let them know what the role will be. But when we lose a game or we lost, you know, I lost 10 games at one time. And they saw me competing with them, and you know what happened? Then we win 4 teams in a row. So I don't believe in negative reinforcement. And I think it's a way that you can get things done in a smart way. That's why they nicknamed me the Comandante, because I never show an expression. Because I told them, I said, look, be on time, play hard, and never show me up, because I will never do that. When my guys strike out with bases loaded, most of the managers turn their face or do something. Or throw something. I mean, he comes by me, I could be devastated, but I pat him in the back. I say, hey, you get it next time. Or if I go to the mound, he give up a home run with bases loaded, just give me the ball. Don't worry. We will talk later. And that was my philosophy.
You know, and you mentioned earlier in an interview, you were talking about when you were a player, you were a little bit of a hothead. Now,
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So how did you learn being a hothead, all of a sudden getting to manage? Did you have to teach yourself to stay cool throughout the whole game, and for that reason that you just talked about?
I owe that to sales. When I was a terrible student, P. I can't even keep up with my class. But as soon as I saw myself and living in the United States with my wife, I started reading. I try to educate myself as much as I can how to understand the nature of a human being. And I learned the patient is the magic of success. You know, when you go to the emergency room, you don't see the doctor going crazy. What happened with you? He go one step at a time.
Yeah.
Or when the pilot is going through a bad turbulence, you don't see him nervous. You know, he's going to find a way what to touch and what to get done. So I learned the patient is the magic of success, and you gotta be a true leader when it comes, you know, the adversities and the problems in the daily basis. In today's era, is how good you are dealing with the player and not how hard you treat the player.
You know, and how about managers that you looked at, maybe you learned some things from? Were there certain managers in certain leagues that you picked some things up from?
Sure. I got a couple. I got a few. No, actually, not a couple. In Mexico, I got a great respect for Paquin Estrada. He passed away. It was a man that I respect a lot because he deal with our players. One player says one day that he was a lucky manager because he got good players. I say, hey, it's more difficult to deal with a whole bunch of good players. And he won 12 titles plus 2 Caribbean Series. That's 14. I mean, that's not a piece of cake. I love the way Tony La Russa actually managed. I met him one time in 2000 through Mike Easler. Tom Lasorda, the way he goes for his business, and Sparky Anderson. You know, Sparky Anderson was a good mix of motivational individual as well to get the best out of the player. But Tony La Russa, to me, has a good ingredient, and he prepared himself, and that was me. You know, I get up in the morning at 9 o'clock, have my breakfast. At 10:30, I was in my office, like if I go into the doctor's office daily for my business. I never was the manager to get to the ballpark an hour or 2 hours before the practice. And I also demand my coaches to be there pretty early to get things done.
You know, speaking about your coaches, and first of all, folks, I can attest to Eddie's punctuation because he is punctual. He is way be on time because I spent time in Cuba with him and in Vancouver and many other places. And I have a lot of respect for him because he has, it seems like you have a routine and you stick to that routine, and then your players kind of fall into that also because they see the manager's routine and then they get a routine, and that routine, it leads to success in a lot of ways.
Players like to see that, especially when players see you, that you dress the right way, and you smell the right way with the best cologne that you have, and you have a nice watch, and you eat the right way. You gotta practice what you preach. So, but with the time, I'm very, very punctual. I mean, if I tell you 5 o'clock, you know me. At 5 o'clock, I'm there. So I told my guys, I said, hey, if a boss leaves at 9 o'clock, I give you 2 minutes of a little break to be on time. If you're not there at 9:02, I'm gone. And they know me, but they got used to that, and they respect that. A manager have to earn respect. Never lie to a ball player. If you lie to him, you're in trouble. If you tell a player, hey, you're gonna play tomorrow, and for some reason you're not playing him, then you're gonna have an enemy for the next couple of days. If you got a guy that you're not going to play him, let him know. Let him know that he's not going to be in the lineup. You're not going to be playing every day. Because in reality, the truth is pretty hard. But in the end, it takes good. Because he's going to say, you know what? This freaking guy, he did not put me in the game. But he told me that I'm not going to play. I'm just going to be ready. And a lot of times, I got players upset. I met them in the restaurant. They in a different table. And by the time they ask for the check, they already say, hey, Eddie Diaz paid for it. It's not for me to try to earn them. It's to me to show him the respect that they try the best of they can to be a team player, because it's hard. When you got a guy that wants to play, God bless them. A lot of players in this day, they don't want to play. Trust me, a lot of guys don't want to be in the lineup. They just want to be in the ball team. But when you got a guy who's fighting and questioning you why he's not playing, find a way how to understand that player.
Eddie, the other part of the developing a club and the culture of the club is your coaching staff. You've got to give them certain responsibilities. How much leeway did you give them? How did you work with your coaches?
Pretty hard. I mean, I was very demanding. Well, I still are. I still getting offers, and I feel strong. Am I going to go back and manage a couple of more years and win a ball? But for example, I need to know what communication my pitching coach do have with the bullpen coach. I don't want to hear that he doesn't know who's coming up, if it was the lefty or was righty. My third base coach, I don't accept that he made a mistake. This is like a patient, which is an emergency room. That's how I treat my game daily. You cannot make one mistake. If you made a mistake, he's dead. So, and I'm very picky when it comes to sign. Usually, when I manage, 90% of my sign go to the first base coach. It's very little through the third base coach. I let the third base coach deal with the traffic, but I go through first base when I put my plays on, so everybody knows what's going on. Sometimes I got direct sign with my runner in second base. I love to steal with 2 outs. A lot of teams, they say, hey, 2 outs. So the second baseman and shortstop, they're not even covering the guy. Hey, you know what? I'm running. So I did a lot of things backwards in the game of baseball, and that made me a lot of success out.
You know what? And I thought that's interesting because, as the show's called Baseball Outside the Box, I believe you're an outside the box thinker because you kind of go on instincts. You don't necessarily follow the book all the time.
That's true. That's who I was. I'm going to tell you something very interesting. We playing against Mexicali, and we ahead 3-1. With that game, we go to the finals. And I was talking with one of my coaches, Darryl Brinkley. And I say, hey, tomorrow we got to attack this guy, because if we lose the game early in the innings, they will bring Gonzalez to pitch, and he might bring us back to Mexicali. I don't want that. So I saw come in the owner from the other team, pitching coach, manager, players, they having a meeting in another table. I said, man, remember what I tell you. We have to be aggressive. So we went, we aggressive. But you know what? He make it easier for me because he only brought in Gonzalez. He brought in his last pitcher. So we went pretty easy. So you got to be prepared game by game. You got to have the cape of Superman. If you're going to go manage 60 games, you got to be focused 60 games. If you're going to manage 162, hey, when somebody says to you, man, I'm tired for the season, you know that person worked. But somebody's so relaxed and dandy, his brain has not been, actually put to effort at work.
One of the toughest things, it seems like in pro ball, I know in the major leagues, and it's very important. I see the good managers, they do this really well, and that's how they handle the media. Talk about how you address the media, because, especially after a tough loss, sometimes a question can get you a little pissed off, but you can't, you got to, like you said, stay even keeled. How'd you deal with the media?
Very easy. Everything that I learned in sales helped me to deal with people. The media is the easiest part in my business. You saw that when we got together. I'm going to give an example. It's been people that criticized me pretty bad for something that he did, and he came and he said, apologize. I said, look, all of you are my coaches without uniform. All you media are coaches without uniform. I will pick from you guys things that will help me later. And it's true, because sometimes they make comments and you as a manager, you don't know everything, P.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you want to get upset, like, oh, this guy never played baseball. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, you play professional baseball or play amateur baseball or never play the game, that doesn't mean that you don't understand the game. Some of these people have sense of what they say. So it was one gentleman that criticized so much one move. And he came over and he said, hey, can we talk? I said, sure. You're not upset with me? I said, no. Why am I upset with you? He said, well, because I say this. I said, well, but that's what you believe. And I tell you what, I'm going to put them in practice. It's like with my owner, Rene Arturo. Every day I discuss the lineup. And I always leave 2 spots in the lineup to please him. If he wants a player to play, I put him in. I don't need 9 guys. I have 7. If you want to play one guy, I do it for you. I did it with Jose Antonio Mansour with Pepe, and that's why he loves it. He said, hey, can you put this guy to play tonight? I said, sure, no problem. Who else? So you have to learn that you win the game with few guys. One day it's going to be your third hitter. One day it's going to be your last hitter with a squeeze play. One day it's going to be the man on second base. So to me, you have to be created around the media, around your people, and understand when they bring some subject and not think that they don't know anything. Yes, they do things.
You know what? I can't agree with you more. I really believe, because watching the media all the time, these guys watch 120 games a year, 150, 60 games a year. They're pretty sharp. They understand the game. So I agree with you. I think that's fantastic. And I think coaches can learn from that. And, since we're on that, here's another aspect of the game is you got to deal with the umpires. I want to address how because when I remember coming from Team USA, then going to independent ball, my good friend, a great manager, but he was around pro ball a long time. Boy, he was on the umpires all the time, but that seemed to be the old way in the old days. They got on the umpires a lot. Talk about how you dealt with the umpires.
Well, when you're young at the beginning, you want to be, rest in peace, Eric Weaver. You want to be loud.
Yeah.
But in reality, good managers don't allow to be thrown out of the game. When you have to stay in the game, especially when it's a tough game. It comes a time when you have to actually defend your play and you go up there and do what you got to do. It's been umpires in Mexico that have never thrown me out of the game. But one thing that you have to learn is how to control yourself. I never curse an umpire. And let me tell you, Pete, I argue pretty hard. If you see some of the videos when I've been thrown out on the game in the past, are very hard. And I go pretty hard in my business, but I never offend them. I never call their mom. I never say anything that later I regret. I got pretty good control when it comes to argue with the umpire. And you have to know which umpire you have to deal with. So when you have an umpire that don't have an easy temper, you got to be smarter. You got to know what you're doing.
Hey, there's always distractions everywhere. You know that. A little shout out while you say that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. That's my little
one.
My little granddaughter.
Hey, she wants to be on the show. I can't blame her. She's going, Uncle Eddie, you're on the show. Why can't I be on the show? Listen, real quick, a little shout out. Aaron Espinoza and Tito Escobar Lugo, just on Facebook saying hello. From Mexico. What else, Eddie, on the
That's
umpires?
my country.
Yeah, and what about the anything else on the umpires? Any recommendations for coaches out there when they're dealing with umpires?
Let them do their job. Let them do your job. I mean, you know how tough it is when you got somebody in the mound at 94, 95 miles an hour, and they have to call a strike ball. If the ball is 1 inch away from home plate, hitters get upset. I mean, protect your players. I mean, let them know, hey, I'm right here. But that's one thing that I talk to the players and the coaches before the season starts. Say, hey, let me control that part. Let me deal with that. I make sure it doesn't go out of hand. And with the coaches, I always tell them, I say, when I get there, you get out of the way. It's my deal now. I don't want to see any coach be thrown out of the game. I don't like that. And I'll be honest with you. And all my years managing in the summer for 12, 14 years, 10 years in winter ball, I never saw any of my coaches be thrown out of the game.
Yeah, I like that. I really do. And that's a great example for all our younger levels, all the coaches there. The other aspect, and when I'm going to get into the story of the book I was reading, one of the pages in the book. But before we do that, when it comes to dealing with not just the umpires, the media, but now all of a sudden you got an Eddie Diaz on your team that's a little bit of a hothead. And maybe it's a tough time dealing with, failure. How do you deal with those type of players? And I know you got spring training and all that, and you know the players ahead of time, but how do you deal with that? Because, sometimes even during the season, they might snap.
Well, one time I was reading a book. I like to read a lot, and that was two philosophers that they actually was thinking how the world was created, and a scorpion comes down, they try to pick him up and beat him and then say, hey, why did you do that? And he asks, hey, that's his nature. So I want to know the nature of a ball player. And I did have a guy, I have players, it was hard-headed. But I tell you what, Pete, I prefer 9 guys that are hard-headed, that they can play, than 9 nuns. Give me 9 guys that can play. I don't care how difficult they are. I get the best out of themselves, I'd have a closer in the Dominican Republic that everybody tell me how difficult he was. But every player has something, a little switch. If you turn it on, he's on your side. So his reputation was with the other managers that he come in the 4th and the 5th inning of the game, which other players not happy. So he came over to me. I know he comes from the city that I got good friends. So I mentioned his friends. We talk about the friends that he knows, that I know. One day I brought him something for him to read. And he asked me before the season started, hey, Skipper, when do you want me to report to the game? In the 3rd, the 2nd, and 5th inning, or 2 innings before closing the game? I said, no, I want you to be in practice. He goes, okay. So one day before the season started, he comes around bitching and complaining. I say, hey, what's going on? He says, well, there's people, I want 5 tickets. They only can give me 3. So now I know what was his little witness. So I sit down with him. I say, hey, let me ask you a question. How many tickets you need? I need 5 tickets. I said, I tell you what, I got 5 more. You're going to have 10 tickets, but I need you in practice every day. And you know what? He was in practice every day. So sometimes you have to make sacrifices for your players. It was one player that I have complaining that his bats was not good enough and the team don't order any bat. I say, how many bats do you need? And he says, so I need 4 bats of, I need a P72, 34.5 by 32. I say, no problem. I get you the bats. If I get you the bats, you relax? Yeah. So I make a phone call. I call a friend of mine who make bats. He send me the bat, give it to him. So I'm not saying that you have to be the welfare of a player. But if you find a way how to make you main guy happy and be productive for you, because what do you want? A manager's only success is winning championship. I was in a meeting one time with another manager, and they asked the managers, if you go to the finals and you play over 500, you consider yourself a good season? Oh, yeah. If you had a good season. I said, listen, man, if you don't get the W as a championship, you don't have a good year. I don't care what anybody says. When you hit 320, you got 30 home runs and 100 RBIs, yes, you're on the book. But the only way you're going to be on the book is when you get the ring that says you win the championship. So that's the way you have to look as a manager. That's the main definition of a manager. And then it's being a great manager, statistics-wise, but they don't have a ring. You know, when you look at Tony La Russa, he got the rings.
Yeah.
Tony Lasorda, Eric Weaver, Sparky Anderson, you know, Joe Madden, those guys have rings. So if you don't have the ring, I'm sorry. You can be as good as you think you are, or we think you're good and you're a good mentor, beautiful. But for you to be a good manager and then in your career, you want to have a ring.
You know, and part of winning is also the lineup. And it's interesting because I'm always questioning, how do you set the lineup? Do you set it according to who's pitching, you know, the other team, how your players are doing? You know, now you hear a lot about, you know, your leadoff hitter should be one of your best hitters because he gets on base a lot. He's going to bat more often, or maybe your first three hitters need to be your best hitters. How did Eddie work on the lineup? What guidelines did you follow?
I did things in the past that nobody knows that manager like Joe Madden made in the big league, and they make him a genius. I moved, you know, in Mexico, one time I sent my pitcher to left field and I brought it back. Nobody knows about it. Sometime back then I can put my third hitter to be a leadoff hitter. Manny Martinez was my third hitter. And I find out that he was so good at on-base percentage, he got more walks than hits. I said, well, why do I need him here? So I put him in top. So I find out that Willie Otañez, I can put him into his second because he was getting a lot of guys to home play because my 8 and 9 hitters for the last 2 weeks was having the best productive season. So, you know, you gotta be a doctor. You gotta be a surgeon. You gotta search every day. What do you have to do different? And you know, a lot of people don't like sabermetrics, but you have to understand they know what they're doing. It's something up there. You cannot block yourself for the newcomer of the game. I mean, you have to be open. You know, if anything can help, hey, find a way how to put them in your game. You know, life's changed, P. You know, everything changed. I was watching a 1981 All-Star game. You know, the way people wear the pants, the way the people swing, the way the people carry themselves, you know, it's a new era. So you got to be open.
Eddie, what do you like about the game now, especially at the major league level, how it's heading, and maybe something that you think we need to change in the game a little bit?
Well, the only thing I did not like is the only thing that I would love to have back is the American League play against the American League themselves in the National League. I mean, it was a beautiful when these two met, like, you know, like, hey, we met them for the first time after we met in the All-Star game. Probably accelerate the game a little bit. I don't like the rule, the man in second. I really don't. I believe that in the minor league, but not in the big league. You know, I don't think, you know. I think more ex-major league and minor league players, they should get more jobs. You know, I have nothing against the individual that come out of college. No, I don't. I mean, college baseball is a prime. You know, college baseball has great coaches. College baseball has great players. But it's a lot of ex-players out there that don't have no jobs. And, you know, I would love to see more jobs for those guys because, you know, it's a high price. And I'm only saying because of big leaguers. I mean, minor leaguers. You know, it's a lot of individuals out there that they want to have a job, and it's pretty hard for them to get one.
You know, one of the things about getting jobs, I think nowadays is very important is understanding the international aspect. I mean, speaking Spanish, I think is a big attribute. Playing, you know, obviously being played in professional baseball, but communicating with players, you know, so I can see where, you know, probably should have more guys that have played the game, but also that are bilingual.
Well, you know, I'm a little open, but in reality, the game of baseball is an American game. And we need to learn the language. Something that I always tell my people, when I say my people, I'm related with Latin America. Learn the language. You know, when I came to the United States to play the game, the first thing that I want to do is learn the language. one way or the other. Set yourself some goals and say, hey, you know what? This is difficult, but I'm going to find myself how to get things done in this aspect of the game. I don't need a translator. I can go up there and perform myself. So you need to learn the language. You need to learn the culture. You have to understand that you're in their land, and you got to respect that. That's what I believe. I mean, you have to learn the language, and in a lot of big league clubs today, they do spend a lot of money in classes, and they do it much better.
Yeah, I think that's an important key. Matter of fact, they train the players like in the Dominican before they even come up, trying to pick up the language, understanding how to spend money, to kind of get the culture aspect of it so they can adapt a lot easier when they get to the U.S. Hey, speaking about that, you had an interesting story in a book. The general manager, Sherholtz, had a book.
Yeah.
And your name came up in it because of Julio Franco. They were looking at Julio, I guess, coming back to play, and he was playing in the Mexican League. Explain all that.
Well, I know Frank Wren way back, and Frank Wren was assistant GM for the Braves. We get along pretty good. And in the past, he asked me for some players, and I gave him a report. At that time, I was an agent. I was managing, and I was so lucky, because I was an agent certified by the Player Association, and they allowed me to manage in Mexico.
Wow. So
he called me, and he says, Eddie, I have a question. I said, yes. Can Julio Franco still hit in the big league? I said, sure, he can. I said, but there's a lot of breaking balls in Mexico. I said, yeah, but he can turn the fastball around. And he goes, okay. Can you tell me about his makeup? That he's a different man? I said, look, I cannot tell you about the makeup, but I think a man who's almost 50 years old, I don't think he's going to make another mistake. So if you want a guy to come out of the bench, hit for you, and play once a week, that's the man. And they sent a scout to watch him, and guess what? That night they watched him. One of our guys was throwing 96 miles an hour, and he hit a bomb left center, and he went back to the big league. So, and I was very thankful by Fran and John Schuhal, because they dedicated page 41 just saying that, because my report, they got Julio Franco back in the big league.
Absolutely. Boy, I think he played like in 3-4 decades. He played a lot of years.
And it's been a couple of other books, but one of the most interesting books that I have is the Three Championship. Because I like my people in Obregon so much. There was one young man, Jesus Alonso. He texted me, that he wrote a book that he likes to give it to me as a gift. So he was very kind. And I say, hey, would you like to write a book about the Yankees? He said, I would love to. And I said, look, you're going to be the one who's going to write the book about the Three Championship. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I will meet you when I get there in a month, and we'll sit down, we put things together. And we did. And I talked to a good friend of mine, which nickname is Fallo, a person that I have a lot of respect, and I talked to Ren Arturo. And that was pretty good book. It's been effective. It's been more than 500 copies sold. And it's a good story. So, and you've been with me in Obregon when I did one of the charity.
Absolutely. And we did that big camp for the Tampa Bay Rays you had. That was outstanding. I think there were like 300 kids out there.
600.
600. It was incredible. I mean, the kids were everywhere. It was a great camp. It was well organized too. And obviously everybody was on time because they knew the El Comandante was going to be on time. Hey, the other thing is you have great love for Mexico, obviously. I've been to Mexico, I think, 20, 25 times. Got a lot of great friends there. Matter of fact, I'll give a shout out to Enrique Mayorga, somebody I've known for 30 years, currently the president of the Mexican Baseball Federation. But talk about the Mexican League, Baseball League. There's a lot of coaches out there, even in the U.S., aren't really familiar with the Mexican Professional League. Talk about that a little bit.
I'm going to say this pretty open, and I'm going to say this to the Major League. Major League should be more kind to the Mexican League. Mexican League gives so many opportunity to a lot of players. They have no jobs. And I'm not just talking about Dominicans, Venezuelans. No. I'm talking about Americans. They go up there and build their career for 10, 12 years. The Mexican League has been around since 95 years. Sancho Pay pitched there.
Yep.
Horby play there. Gibson play there. And I give you names and names and names and names. And players went to the Mexican League and bounced back to the big league. I remember Ruben Sierra. he's bound back to big league. Borowski, that closer the Cubs used to have. So Mexico, to me, is one of the greatest hosts. It's a great country. Pete, I'm going to tell you this from the bottom of my heart. I've been in and out of Mexico for 23 years. 23 years, and had never hear one bullet. One shot, not one. I'm not saying there's no problems, but they paint Mexico in such a horrible way. It's crazy. You know, you go to Los Cabos, and you know, like my wife and I love to go there. And we go to Los Cabos and sit down by the beach, and with all this problems that's going on, the people, the way they treat you is unbelievable. You've been there.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, it's one country that I owe a lot. I love them. It's a place that I have a special love for them. And Mexico is not the way the people put them. You know, Mexican people is great people. When you get to know them for years and you build your friends, put it this way. Every time I go to Dominican in the past, they thought I was Mexican.
Yeah.
They always thought I was Mexican. So, you know, I never hear one problem in one corner that somebody's shooting or somebody. I'm not saying it's not happening, but 23 years, I never had that experience.
No, and you know what happens, Eddie, and I agree with you because, you know, it happens in a lot of, even in Chicago, we have that issue in some other cities. And, you know, sometimes, you know, something starts to happen and then the media makes it a little bit bigger than it should because it sells. And then all of a sudden people are scared to go and then tourism gets hurt. And I agree with you. Mexico's a great place to go. It's very safe. Yeah. I mean, I've been there 1,000 times, never seen one incident. And I could tell you, I've been to other areas and I've had some issues in other countries or even here in the U.S. You just don't know, you know. It's just, but the people, what I love about the people, boy, do they love baseball. Do they have a passion for baseball? They love that fun.
And let me tell you this. When I said that the Major League Baseball, you know, and I call this to Mr. Manfred and their executive, they have a deal put on the table, which, you know, it's pretty hard now for the Mexican teams to make money when a player jump back to the state. And I know I have to be different regulations and different things, but, you know, they employ a lot of people. It's a lot of players and 16 teams. They got coaches, they got scout, and the Mexican League needs help right now by MLB. You know, they have to put a new structure, which a compensation, which they will have the chance to take care of their coaches and the scouts, because if they don't get any profit when they actually sell the players to the U.S., they cannot have those people on the payroll. And baseball in Mexico has a beautiful, beautiful story. I mean, when you go way back and really find out the first time baseball came in Mexico, when through Veracruz, also through the port of Guaymas, that's how they came in and it started expanding. And it's a great game, you know. And now it's more Major League prospects from Mexico than it was before, because now they want to go to Mexico. Back in the days, players like Hector Espino was considered not only one of the best, but probably the best hitter in the Caribbean back then. I asked Winston Jana one time, hey, Winston, how good was Hector Espino? He says, it's like if you're watching Albert Pujols when he was young.
Wow.
But he doesn't want to leave Mexico. He was happy. He was playing in the summer, he was playing the winter, so he was happy.
Eddie, we got a few more minutes left on the show, and then speaking about Mexico, the talent level, give us an idea of the talent level. You know, what are we looking at? Pitching, defense. You know, what's their strengths, I guess, when it comes to the talent of young players in Mexico?
The scout they're going to get the best out of the Mexican players is the one who understand their bodies. You know, a lot of scouts go up there and they think they're going to, you know, they compare the body with Americans and the Dominicans and Venezuelans. It's not the same. I went through experience where I have a player, Kirk, which I brought it to my academy, and people laugh at his body. You know, they call him the burrito. You know, he's like, yeah, he's like 5'8". Yeah, he does look like a little chubby burrito guy. But you know what? He's in the big league camp right now.
Yeah.
You know, he hit a home run 2 days ago and another home run yesterday. So don't look at their bodies. Look what they can do. You know, they have a square body, but they strong. And pitching is still have an edge of the position players. But position players are coming around. So does, you know, managers for the future. You know, you got somebody like Benji Gill. You know, he's been showing some skills with a uniforms manager. You also have Juan Gabriel Castro. You know, he's showing some skills as a manager. You know, you got another Vizcarra. You also have, you know, Sergio Margastelum coming up with Obregon. So understand their bodies, but and look at their strength. I mean, when you look at Joaquin Soria, Joaquin never was a guy to blow you with 97 miles an hour. You know, he's 92, 93 with a good breaking ball and a good change. Hey, what? You know what? He's over 250 save. And then you go with Jorge Campillo. He was in the Mexican League throwing 90 miles an hour with a 70 changer. And they just picked him up. He went to the big league and he pitched for 4 years. So don't look at their body. Look what they can perform when it comes to time.
You know, I'm glad you said that because you know what it reminded me right away was Moneyball. You know, the same thing they said in Moneyball. I mean, let's look at what the results are. I mean, when you look at Tom House, who I just had on the show 2 hours ago, he threw 84 miles an hour in the big leagues, left-handed. You got Greg Maddux didn't throw very hard. You think how would Maddux do now? He'd be fantastic. He'd be a Hall of Famer again. So, yeah, sometimes we look at just the body, the velocity and all that, but there's a lot more to that than just, you know, to play the game.
You would have signed Fernando Valenzuela if you would have seen him with his body and throwing 90, 89 miles an hour.
Most guys
but you know
wouldn't
what? But he was a performer. And I tell you what, Fernando Valenzuela, if they would have not squeezed the arm the way they did throwing so many complete games, he would have lasted longer. He would have probably win 240 games, probably have 3,000 some strikeout. You know, they have durability, but don't look at their body. Look the way they perform. Don't look blowing a radar gun, even though a lot of Mexican coming out throwing 100 miles an hour. You know, a lot of them. But just look what they can do with the game. And pitching has an edge over the position player right now. But position players turn things around like Luis Uria. Then you got Ornelas, good prospect with the Padres. You know, Villanueva, which is in Japan. And Kirk, another hitter. You know, and it's a lot of position players that coming along pretty good.
All right, Eddie, last message to everybody in the U.S. and around the world when it comes to maybe you could, you know, talk about anything you like, but as far as managing, you know, I guess my one question would be, and you could end it on anything you like. My question would be, what's the hardest thing about managing?
Losing.
Yeah, I agree.
Losing. All I can say is to all the coaches up there that they think they will never have a chance. God delayed things in life, but he don't deny anything. If you write your plan and you know your obstacles and you take action, and I still believe I'm going to be in the big league. You know, something's going to happen, you know, and probably I'm dreaming with it. But I tell you what, dream is cheap. You know, dream yourself. Dream that you're managing against Tony La Russa. You know, dream yourself, you're a basketball player, that you're beating LeBron James and Michael Jordan at the same time. You know, that's what life is all about. You know, thinking yourself and write things down and say, hey, you know what? This is what it is. I mean, when you go back to those people and say, wow, how he made to the big league after 10 years in the minor league, because he persistent and he resists himself to lose. So God delay, he don't deny anything, and just look at your obstacles and take action.
Love it. What a great way to end the show. My good friend, Eddie Diaz. Eddie, listen, man, just so everybody knows, you've always been, you know, everything you've done, you've always supported me 100%. Every time I go talk to people, says Eddie Diaz talks about you all the time, you know, and I just want to thank you on the show because you're always in my corner, and that means a lot to me. So God bless you, man, and thanks for being on the show. This was fantastic.
No, thank you for inviting me to Cuba, Vancouver, and always having me in mind. And I tell you what, Pete, you're a great example that knows so much in baseball, and nobody until this day give the opportunity to you that you deserve, and you know why I say what I'm saying.
All right, man, I appreciate that a lot. I really do, and I know you're on my corner all the time. All right, folks, that's Eddie Diaz, man. I mean, they're, you know, one of the best managers in the game. I don't care where you're from, and it's a guy that goes by instincts, and he definitely knows how to handle people. He's a people person and knows the game well. So, again, Eddie Diaz, Pete Caliendo, special thank you to Brian Kroc, our producer with the Lineup Media Group. Special thanks to everybody on Facebook, everybody in the U.S. and around the world, and especially in Mexico City, Obregon. Thanks for joining us, man. We're thrilled that you could join us this evening. Don't forget, stay healthy, be safe. Hopefully be on the baseball field soon. Tomorrow, Andre Lachance, Baseball Canada, 1 p.m. Central Time, the next show. So everybody, God bless you all, and be safe. We'll see you on the next show.